we come into this world unknown. But know that we are not alone. They try to knock us down, but change is coming. It's our time now. Hey, everybody loses it. Everybody wants to throw it all away sometimes. And hey, yeah, I know what you're going through. Don't let it get the best of you. You'll make it out alive. Oh, people like us, we gotta stick together. Keep your head up, nothing lasts forever. Here's to the damned, to the lost and forgotten. It's hard to get high when you're living on the bottom. We are all misfits living in a world on fire. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us.
Hey, this is not a funeral, it's a revolution after all. Your tears have turned into rage. Just wait, everything will be okay. Even when you're feeling like you're going down in flames. Oh, people like us, we gotta stick together. Keep your head up, nothing lasts forever. Here's to the damned, to the lost and forgotten. It's hard to get high when you're living on the bottom.
We are all misfits living in a world on fire. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us. You just gotta turn it up loud when the flames get higher. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us. They can't do nothing to you, they can't do nothing to me. This is the life that we choose, this is the life that we lead. So throw your fists in the air, come out if you dare. Tonight we're gonna change forever. Everybody loses it.
Everybody wants to throw it all away sometimes.
Oh, people like us, we gotta stick together. Keep your head up, nothing lasts forever. Here's to the damned, to the lost and forgotten. It's hard to get high when you're living on the bottom. We are all misfits living in a world on fire. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us. You just gotta turn it up loud when the flames get higher. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us. We are all misfits living in a world on fire. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us. You just gotta turn it up loud when the flames get higher. Sing it for the people like us, the people like us.
It's UUCC Zoom-In Live with special guest Mike Carney. Here's your host, David Kantor, with co-host Claudia Victorov.
Well, good evening, everybody. Good to be with you this evening. Welcome my co-host, Claudia. Claudia, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
I'm doing great tonight, Claudia. Thank you. Well, you know, a special show for us. This is the celebration of our 1-year anniversary of Zoom-In Live. Now, you know, some people might say we're a little bit calendar challenged since the show actually started in September. in August, excuse me, the end of August. But Mike Carney was our first guest, and he's our first repeat guest this evening. So I guess that counts for a year. So it's going to declare it 1 year.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah, you get to do that. You're the host.
I think that's within my host purview.
It is.
So people might not know this, Claudia, but you just got back from Armenia, didn't you? You were there for what?
I was there for like 17 days.
And what were you in Armenia?
The first half I was with my mom. My mom is Armenian, so we kind of classic cultural things touring around the city. And then the second half I was working with a group of American Armenian scientists and Armenian scientists who live in Armenia. And we were touring around the country, collecting samples, running biodiversity inventory, kind of just building collaboration, and hopefully that will be fruitful for the future.
So what you're describing to me as doing cultural things with your mother, she described to me as late night bar hopping. Okay. So can you please clarify between those two?
Somewhere in between the two, probably.
Yes, Allison, it's all coming out now. Sorry, I couldn't keep a secret. I apologize. So, Claudia, we have a big announcement to share with folks tonight, don't we?
Yeah.
So, for those of you who have been regulars from the beginning, or those of you who haven't, just joining us tonight, we're going to announce tonight the end of the show's run. The show is going to wrap up with the September 13 episode. So after tonight, there will be 3 more episodes, and then we're going to pull the curtain down on UUCC Zoom-In Live. I mean, the reality is that the rationale for the show from the beginning was to bring us together during the time of COVID, when we could not come together at all as a larger group. And so our charge was to do something that would bring together larger groups of people than we had in small group ministries. And I'd like to think that we succeeded in doing that. But now, as you all know, we are together during summer services now outside. And I would say to you that we're expecting that as we move forward now, that we'll figure out ways of our being able to be together in a larger setting somehow or other. So we've said that once that happened, our show would be no longer be necessary. So we're going to wrap up the show after the next few episodes. But again, we're going to go out the bang though. So we'll share more with you about that at the end of the show tonight. So don't leave early. You're going to hear some things that others won't know about until they read The Hawk in a few days. So you'll get first dibs on that. So be sure to hang around to the end of the show and hear some other stuff.
The last 3 episodes are going to be like the last 3 episodes, like the last season on a sitcom where like insane things happen and you're like, didn't see that coming. It's going to be great.
This is like the last 3 episodes of Cheers or Friends or How I Met Your Mother.
Okay,
so,
that's getting closer to things that I watch.
Your age, yes. So,
you just got like closer and closer.
I was working through that to get closer and closer. I wish I didn't start with MASH. I could have started with MASH.
Start with MASH. That was good.
Start with MASH. So, or Bonanza for cripe's sakes, but never mind.
So
anyway, so make sure you hang around to the end of the show tonight. We'll tell you some other stuff about what's going to happen. But in the meantime, a quick reminder for you all, please use the chat function at the bottom of your Zoom screen to announce yourself. Make sure you send it to everybody and not just the panelists, because your fellow congregants want to know that you are here.
If you've been with us before, thanks for coming back. And if this is your first time, we're glad you're here. We hope being with us every couple of weeks becomes part of your routine for the next couple months. And enjoying it, please tell you it's like that message doesn't really stick now, but the more the merrier. Let your friends know the show is coming to a close, so they definitely ought to be on the last 3 episodes. They're not to be missed. Another reminder, if you've missed part of a show and want to check it out, many of the episodes are up on the UUCC YouTube channel, save a few due to some editing needs.
So as you know, we've established Jack Allman moment where we hear some jokes from Jack. Now, we always appreciate Jack being here with us, but we especially appreciate it tonight since Jack is recovered from surgery he had last Friday. So for all I know, Jack might be telling his jokes in Armenian tonight. So let's all welcome Jack Allman. Jack, thanks for being here.
Thanks, David and Will, and excuse me, David and Claudia. It's good to be back with you again. After more than 20 shows, I am clearly running low on material. Plus, I haven't seen many of my jokester friends, and I'm not getting new stuff. So tonight, I'm going to have to dig deep into my family's humor. I know everyone listening has some great, funny stories. There are three. Young, my Uncle Bill and Aunt May would come from their my proud of her son and wanted me to be close to him, even though I only saw him once a year. After one magnificent turkey was consumed, we were enjoying tea and conversation. My grandmother said, "You know, Jackie, Bill ran track for John Adams. 3 times he ran against the great Jesse Owens." I was impressed, and I asked my uncle, "Really, Uncle Bill, what did he look like?" My uncle, cigar in hand, replied, "I couldn't really tell you. I never saw the front of him." Near my grandparents were from the German Mr. Laub, and they took advantage of the opportunity to come to America. Our family motto was that if they'd been bankers instead of bakers, we would have been rich instead of fat. My last true tale is about a student character I worked with at Bedford High. While we had a diverse student body, I only knew of one Mexican American whom we all called Chico, probably after the TV show Chico and the Man. Yeah. Now and then Chico would have minor disciplinary problems, and we would have a conference with his mother who spoke no English. We would describe the problem, attendance, tardiness, etc., and Chico would translate. His mother would smile and say, "Oh, see." The principal turned to me and said, "I think he just told her he made the National Honor Society." Chico laughed and said, No, I wouldn't do that." After Chico graduated, he called me one afternoon to see if I knew of any job opportunities in the area. "Hello, Mr. Allman." I replied, "Hi, Chico." He said, "How do you know who this is?" Well, that's a look at my funny life. Back to you, David. Back to you, Claudia.
Thanks, Jack. By the way, I mentioned during our last episode about Jack being a man of many interests, so rock and roll being amongst them. So we're going to close tonight's show at the end after our final announcements here with another song suggested by Jack. So that's just one more reason to hang around for a few extra minutes as the show wraps up. But that's later. Let's get on to now. Let's welcome tonight's special guest, Mike Carney, our esteemed, I say esteemed, UUCC music director. You should all feel flattered that I think you're all educated enough to know what that word means. For those of you who are regular viewers of our show, you know that Mike was our very first guest back last August, and he has graciously agreed to a repeat appearance tonight as we're celebrating our first anniversary. Of course, our threats against his pets might have something to do with that as well, but never mind. A lot has changed in a year, and I know that's a classic understatement, and we'll get to Mike's perspective on all that a little bit later. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm UUCC welcome to Mike Carney. Well, Mike, that's a pretty strong yay for you. So
I'm kind of feeling esteemed right now.
How have you been doing? You just got back from vacation yourself, huh?
I did. Lucy and I and some other members of our family, we were at Sunset Beach in North Carolina, which is as far south as you can go in North Carolina before you're in South Carolina on the coast. And we've been to that beach a few times in the past, but not for many years. And it was really great to get away and unwind a little bit just for a few days.
And was that a good place to go to explore Armenian science?
Not so much. It's a long swim if you want to explore Armenian science from North Carolina.
Armenia is landlocked, so it's a long swim and
it's a really long swim.
Very long swim, that, and the last few miles they are a bear.
Upriver, I'm going to assume there's a river somewhere in Armenia that spills into the Mediterranean, probably.
Oh, yes, it's the River Victoroff. You didn't know that, did
Oh,
you?
of course, yes.
So what would be the River Bashian to go with the Armenian name?
All right.
Mike, thanks for being our special guest on our first anniversary show. Of course, this might be our only anniversary show, but mine. So when you think about where we were as a society and a congregation a year ago versus now, and where you were a year ago versus now, what pops into your mind?
Well, it's been an eventful year. It feels like it's been 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 years wrapped into one. I mean, I don't even know how to start to describe 2020 to 2001. It's been a ride. It's been a real roller coaster, getting from there to here. And I have the feeling that we're done with this ride.
Be a safe thing to say. So speaking of that ride, how have you been dealing with COVID? Have you gotten your vaccinations? And if you did, how long ago did that happen?
Absolutely. We were, Lucy and I both got our first shot on her birthday, which is March 20th. And our second shot a couple weeks later, of course. We got the Pfizer down at Wolstein Center when they were doing that that whole thing there. And everybody in our family and our kind of close circle anyway is vaccinated. And of course it's changed a lot about how we approach the world. We feel a good deal safer and a good deal more confident going out and doing some things than we did a year ago, even 6 months ago, I guess, when we were still waiting for the vaccine.
So when you think about what you're doing differently now from before you were vaccinated, what pops into your mind the most?
Well, the thing that pops right in the front of my mind is we went on a vacation. This trip that we just came back from was originally planned for the summer of 2020. And we canceled our plans then, and we canceled our reservation on a beach house, and somebody else snapped it right up and said, "Yeah, I'll take that for August of 2020." But this year, my parents are both alive, I'm happy to say, but they're both in their 80s, and we weren't ready to pack a house full of extended family and do a bunch of stuff with them, not knowing what we might be putting our foot into at that time. So taking a trip, going out to the grocery store sometimes without a mask on, although that's starting to turn the other way. But life has been feeling more normal. Having church in person is another big one, of course. Even though we're outside, it still is a really different experience than the way we were doing things, not so long ago.
So Mike, I know that you told us a bit about your family history the first time you were on the show, but we need a little bit of a refresher. So can you remind us where you're from and a bit about your family structure and your family religious or spiritual background?
Sure. Yeah, I grew up in Lorain County. The first few years of my life, I lived in Bay Village, and then my family moved to Elyria to be closer to Dad's work. My dad was a math professor at Lorain County Community College for most of his career, and so I grew up in Elyria, and I grew up UU. I was, from an early age. My family, we were members, and in fact, Lucy and I are still members of the Olmsted UU congregation in North Olmsted on Cleveland's west side, and so that was my hometown growing up, and I went to school at Baldwin Wallace for my undergrad, and then later to Kent State for my master's degree.
Did you go to church like routinely throughout the whole time? Like as another lifelong UU, I'm really curious if you had like young adult hiatus or if you were pretty
Well,
consistent.
so when I was 19 or 20 years old, I think I was a junior at Baldwin Wallace when I got my first paying gig as a church musician.
Oh, wow.
Right. Yeah. Besides just soloing and, like not one-off stuff, but actually like, no, we want you to be our music director. And that was at a Lutheran church in Rocky River. And from that point up until right now, I've been in one church job or another. And for a good deal of my professional life, those were not UU churches because there aren't that many UU churches that actually help you pay the bills. And so to put it, there aren't that many UU churches, period, if you're talking about, this part of the world. So I worked in various churches, and so that was my hiatus from the faith, if you will. And it wasn't until our kids enough to start asking, hey, why does Dad go to a different church than we do? That Lucy and I decided maybe we can live without, that part of the income for a while. And so then I came back to be music director at my home church in North Olmsted. And that's a very small congregation, so they don't have much of a budget for that kind of thing. But it was something that I felt was important to do for my family and for my church.
Oh, that's so cool, Mike. Thanks for sharing. When you reflect on growing up in Lorraine and UU, what's the biggest lesson that you learned, or what are some of your favorite memories? I think you could choose a question.
So, favorite memories of being a UU growing up?
Yeah, sure. That's relatable for me.
Yeah. So we did when I was, I don't know, 13, 14, we did the pilgrimage to Boston on the Amtrak, which was really cool. And then later, we got a special guest here. This is Charlie, everybody. So
Hey, Charlie.
So later, at one point, Lucy was working as DRE at Olmsted, and we did that trip again with our kids and with a bunch of the youth from that church at that time. And so that was a really cool memory of growing up UU. And I remember the church bell in North Olmsted. It's got a historic bell tower and what seemed at the time growing up to be this unbelievably massive bell. And we used the bell tower from time to time. But if you rang the bell, you hang on to you would get a nice ride up on the rope as the bell would turn. And so that was always a good time.
Yeah, that's the kind of like picturesque religious stuff that I thought I was missing out on growing up UU. I didn't realize we had churches with massive bells.
Yeah, that one is a historic 1847 sanctuary out there in North Olmsted.
So you mentioned Lucy. Could you tell us a little bit about how you and Lucy met and your current family structure? Sure.
We grew up actually only a few miles from each other, but we never met until we were in college. So we lived in the same building in Kohler Hall at Baldwin Wallace, and she's 1 year younger than me. So we met during my sophomore year, and we both loved music and still love music, of course, and sang in a lot of groups, college, and got together in that. And we're sweethearts, and our family, we have 2 kids, not counting Charlie, who you met just a minute ago. We have 2 human being children.
Nice.
So our daughter Erin lives in Chicago, and she works as a musician and went into the family business. And our son Wes lives in Cleveland, and he works as a mechanical engineer.
So my last question, aside from being at our church, which we're so grateful for, professionally and personally, what else do you do with your life?
That's a nice narrow question. Let me see.
Sorry.
Do I have 30
feel
seconds to
David
answer that?
urging me to wrap up my section, so I'm trying to like pull
Well,
multiple things into one.
I already
Mike,
talked
very
about.
narrow interest.
Yeah.
Tell us the one or two things you really spend your time on. We'll call it a day.
Yeah, that's cool. So everybody, I think in this Zoom knows that I love making music, and I do that professionally, and I also do it just for fun. I do, I do all kinds of. I love being outside, riding my bike, going for a walk with Lucy. Being at the ocean with my family. So professionally, I've done about everything that there is for a musician to do. I've performed, I've taught, I've written and arranged, I've conducted. I've done public school and university and church and professional and everything in between.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, Mike. So we're gonna something you didn't do the last time you were with us. It's one of our newer segments that we didn't have way back when. We're gonna put you through the Colbert Lightning Round. So as most of you know who are in the audience, I got this idea from watching a Stephen Colbert late night show where he did this lightning round of 15 questions with Tom Hanks and George Clooney and Meryl Streep, and it captured my imagination so much I thought we'd try doing that on our show. They swear that you answer these questions and you know more about a person than a half-hour interview. So we'll see how this works out with Mike. So remember my lightning round. So I ask, you're going to answer. And tonight, Mike, we have 10 questions because there's that special. Normally it's only 9. We went to 10 for you. So Mike, here we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What's the best sandwich?
BLT.
Your favorite movie?
The Godfather.
The trait you most value in your friends?
Honesty.
Scariest animal?
Saltwater crocodile.
Saltwater. It's very specific.
As a kid, yeah, I remember being afraid of that, reading about it in a book and being terrified of it, not realizing they didn't live in Lake Erie at the time.
So what do you think happens when you die, Mike?
I think you return to the earth.
Your favorite smell?
Fresh baked bread.
Mm.
The living person you most admire?
I'll go with Obama.
A lot of people do. What's the most used app on your phone?
Probably text message or maybe Amazon Music.
Uh-huh. The best concert you've ever attended?
There are a lot. Maybe the induction or the kickoff concert when they opened the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame back in the 90s.
That'd be a good one. And describe the rest of your life in 5 words.
A journey to unknown destination.
Great. Great answers.
That was very sweet, Mike. So the last time you spoke with David, you spent a bunch of time discussing the logistics of doing choir music during a pandemic. Did this new way of doing things become as routine as live choir?
No, absolutely not. Because I've been participating in, and I've been directing live choirs since I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go with at least 10 or 15 years. and a lot more experience with that than I had with making music virtually. And I think I got better at that as the pandemic wore on. But it never, yesterday at Paul Ernsberger's memorial service, before that service, I got together out on the lawn of the church with some members of the choir, and we went through a piece of music and learned it so we could sing it for Paul's service. And I wasn't sure how rusty that was I was gonna feel, and it was so comfortable. It was so natural to go back to that. It really felt like coming home.
So the next question is how it feels to evolve back into in-person live services. From what you said, I know the memorial service is a really different experience, but how does it feel in the church service specifically?
Still feels a little weird, to be honest, because the outdoor service is a different experience. It's there's different logistics involved, and it has some advantages to it. It's pretty cool, to be right out there in the neighborhood and to be out in the natural world. But it's also more difficult in terms of just having to set everything up and take everything down with music equipment, and there's more to think about. There's more to kind of be aware of ahead of time and afterward.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you ended up being our music director at first U originally and now UUCC?
Sure. So you already know the first part of this story, which is that I've been a professional church musician for a long time, and I went back to doing music at Olmsted for a while. And at one point at Olmsted, we had a DRE by the name of Bethany Ward, who, many of the First Church people know. And Bethany moved on, before I did. But Bethany contacted me in 2015 to say, hey, just so you know, we've got an opening at First Church, and you might be interested. And so that was where the seed was planted. And then it kind of grew from there, and I checked it out and interviewed and was brought in 2015. And then, of course, a lot of changes have happened since then with the institution. But I'm glad to be here, glad to be a part of it.
We're super glad to have you, Mike. Thank you.
So Mike, let's go beyond our church walls for just a couple of minutes. And let's hear from you about your views about country struggles around issues of race and racism. How do you view those things?
I mean, I guess there's good news and bad news when it comes to that. The good news is, the way I look at it, I think racial justice is far more front of mind in our kind of mainstream culture than it used to be for the average American and for corporate America and for Hollywood and so on. I think I'd like to think that the days of sort of casual offhand racism being acceptable are numbered. I think the places where that is acceptable are shrinking, are getting fewer and fewer. The really tragic thing is how we reached this level of consciousness and this level of awareness about race and racism. I mean, we can hope that out of, something good can grow out of tragedy. When you think about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others, that maybe this shocks the nation into meaningful change, the way that, for example, the death of Emmett Till did all those years ago, that was in many, a lot of people believe that was, one of the first seeds that sprouted the civil rights movement 10 years later. And it's a horrible way to get a movement started. But But if George Floyd and Breonna Taylor had died in the way that they died, then my hope that means something. Lip service and good thoughts aren't enough to get the job done. Every time there's a big leap forward for rights of an oppressed people, whether you're talking about Black people or Asian people or LGBTQ or women, it's always accompanied by those who are already in power participating, making it part of it, and those who are already in power, of course, I'm talking about white men. There are all these, you think about the civil rights movement and you think about Martin Luther King and John Lewis and all these other Black leaders, but there were also, white ministers that were participating in that. There were, Presidents Kennedy and Johnson had a big part to do with that. And music history is full of this too. You think about the guys in Atlantic Records like Jerry Wexler or like Benny Goodman, who was the biggest star of the 1930s. And he was the one who forced record companies and venues to allow Lionel Hampton to play with his band, to say, I'm going to play with an integrated band, which at the time was complete taboo. But he was such a huge star and he had that power he was in that position of power as a white man. And he said, I'm going to use my power to do something meaningful here.
So does that mean that over time now you're becoming increasingly optimistic, and or are you frustrated by the speed or lack of progress?
Yes.
That's a good answer. So I'm going to move us on to our congregation's future for just a little bit here. And I guess I'm curious as to how you view our congregation's current situation and what you see as our biggest opportunities and challenges in moving from our virtual congregation life to whatever we evolve to in our next step now.
Well, the good news here is that we've got a real kind of blank slate in front of us. That, we've got a new minister coming in about a week, and we've got, the way we've been forced to do things for the last year and a half with virtual services and outdoor services has been, in a weird way, kind of a palate cleanser in terms of the way we think about worship. That, one of the challenges that I think every congregation faces is the kind of clinging to tradition that is not always. Tradition is important, but it also can hold you back, where it's like, oh, we've always done it this way. And eventually that gets to have a momentum where nobody steps back and says, wait a minute, why have we always done it this way? And maybe there's another way to think about this. So, as far as worship is concerned, I think there's some opportunities to really kind of rethink the way we do things. I would love to have our congregation continue with social justice work, to be more of a connective force in and around the community, to be right at the vanguard when it comes to social justice and racial justice issues.
So you know what I'd say? Because I agree with you on this. I think that for all the organizations I work with, all the not-for-profit organizations I work with, everybody's looking for some sense of normalcy. And yet all the leaders know that whatever that sense of normalcy is, it will include some aspects of what their organization was like before the pandemic hit. And they also know two other things. One is that they've learned some things from how they had to do things during the pandemic. And there are some things that should change because they do them better now differently than they did before. And they also know that because of the pandemic and because of the ongoing nature of the threat of it, things will never be the same again, and some things are going to have to change. And so in my mind, I think those are great lessons. I mean, what you're alluding to is what I think would be great lessons for us as a congregation to recognize, because while we all yearn for that sense of normalcy, I do like everybody else, I recognize that that does not mean that everything is going to go back to just the way it was before. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Normal is, I equate normal with safe, like, oh, let's get back to normal. But there's really, I think what you said in so many words is there's no such thing as normal anymore. That we have to figure out what that is. It's sort of a cliche to talk about the new normal, but really, that's where we are.
Yeah. So Mike, fill in the blank. If there's one thing I really wish we'd retain at UUCC, it would be
forward momentum, a sense of purpose.
And one more fill in the blank. If there's one thing I wish we'd consider modifying about UUCC, it would be
to be more open to change, to be more open to doing things in different ways.
Yeah. So Mike, I recall from the last time we were together that you've got, to put it mildly, wide and varied, some would say eclectic musical interests. So what are you listening to these days? What are your newest discoveries?
Well, I listened to something I'd never heard before in the pre-show. I looked it up. What was, and it was an actor, Matt Bomer.
That's some people like us.
Yeah, that one was new to me.
That was new to you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that is actually,
yeah, go ahead.
That is actually our show's theme. It is a song that I had a different theme song planned for the show from the get-go. And then a couple of weeks before the show, there's a TV show on one of the streaming services called The Doom Patrol, which is based on a comic book of misfit superheroes. And one of the episodes, one of the superheroes and one of the guests sing this song in a nightclub where basically everybody's different.
Nice.
And I heard that song and I thought that suited our congregation perfectly.
That is great. Yeah, and I'm not a regular attendee because usually Mondays I'm in a different Zoom meeting with good company. But yeah, I also noticed you threw in some Rolling Stones today. Is that because it's Mick Jagger's birthday? Was that your impetus there?
It was my homage to Mick. Well, the deal was that, so I have a list of my favorite rock and roll songs, and there are I don't know, maybe half a dozen Rolling Stones songs there, and I realized that I have not played a single one yet on the show. Wow. And then I realized, gee, I'm not going to have that many more opportunities given our decision about the show. And I figured now is the perfect time to do that. So there it is.
That's right. To get to your question, David, I've been listening, for professional reasons, I've been listening to a lot of choral music lately because I've been working on programming a fall concert with good company. I've really been enjoying Joel Thompson's stuff. He's a relatively new composer from the Atlanta area. We heard in one of our virtual services, we featured his 7 Last Words of the Unarmed. And so I've been doing a lot, but outside of that, on the trip, I was listening to some Gary Clark Jr. Melody Gardot has a new album out. I was digging on that. Griff is a new person from England. She's got some cool stuff. Cynthia Erivo. Sarah Jarrus has a couple of new albums out over the last few years. So, Brad Mildau Trio. I'm all over the map, like you said.
So much music, so little
Mike,
time,
you
Mike.
have to make us Spotify playlists and share them with the congregation.
Claudia, I have 4 massive, and I mean thousands of songs each, Spotify playlists that are just because I couldn't fit all of the songs into one, and I had to split them up, that I just kind of listen. Like every time I hear something that I consider interesting, I toss it into one of these 4 playlists, and then I just kind of listen gradually, and the stuff I really like, I will then move into other playlists that I listen to, you know, like on road trips and stuff. But I listen to those big playlists a lot at work.
Okay. Well, you need
So
to
Mike-
like curate a UUCC music recommendations playlist on top of all your other responsibilities. This is
Yeah.
a request.
So Mike, last question for you. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Well, I answered this question 11 months ago, and it wasn't to travel in time, although I could have been here, or I could go back there, but I don't think I want to go back there. I think what I said then is I would love to be able to transport myself to any place,
Right.
without without any expenditure or harm to the environment or anything else. If I could just be sitting on the beach, because I have a half hour to spare, I'm going to spend it there walking in the ocean, or go visit my daughter in Chicago, or anything else I want to do just at the drop of a hat.
Good answer. Okay, Mike, thanks for all those answers to our questions. And so, gang, we're going to take a brief break now to get your questions for Mike organized. If you have a question for Mike, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen and ask it. Please do not use the chat button, but please do ask questions. We'll get things organized for you to ask your questions when we return. But first, our mid-show break with the song Get It Like You Like It by Ben Harper. See you in a few.
No,
And we're back. That was a song, Get It Like You Like It by Ben Harper. I know you couldn't figure out the name of that song. Our first song tonight, by the way, for those of you who were with us early, was Better Way, another Ben Harper song. Both of those songs were selected by Mike. For those of you who are curious, Ben Harper was born in Pomona, California, when my son went to college in 1969, before my son was born. He's recorded 12 studio albums, is a 3-time Grammy Award winner. The songs we played tonight are both from his 2006 album, Both Sides of the Gun. I do not comment on the name of the album. I'll just say that I like both of those songs. I'm going to check out a little bit more of Ben Harper. Thank you, Mike.
I dig some Ben Harper. And he's also Mr. Laura Dern, a little piece of trivia there.
He's Laura Dern's husband?
Yep.
I did not know that.
Unless they split up. I think they're still together. I don't know for sure. They were married in, I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that.
Okay, let's go to our questions now. You ready for those, Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up that Q&A.
Okay, first question for you is from David or Mary Schatzman. So one of you, please, you're on the air with Mike.
Yeah, well, it's Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hey, at the beginning of COVID, there were some choir things that were super spreader events.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, given all the controversy, except we're UUs, and so we're not on a lot of that controversy, but in preparation for in-service choir, when we actually get back to doing that, are you going to make sure everybody's vaccinated?
That's a good question and a thorny question. That is about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago now, I sent a survey out to the members of the choir in preparation for, okay, what are we going to do? And so I asked them any number of questions about, okay, how do you feel about this scenario? How do you feel about that scenario? And one of the questions was, have you received a vaccine? And I gave them the options of yes, no, or I prefer not to say. And I figure that third response is the same as the second response. But so far I'm happy to say, and my fingers are crossed here, that everyone who's responded has responded yes, that they've been vaccinated. So I think that's 22 people so far. So we'll see. It's one of those, the UUA's guidance on this is that we don't want to be exclusionary of people, but at the same time, there's, if I say, okay, we're only gonna do choir if we can do it 20 feet away from each other and everybody wearing a mask, there are people who might self-exclude if I say that's the way we're doing it. So it's a really tough answer, but I am gathering information from the choir members in the hope that at some point we might be able to do this again.
Thank you.
So, Mike, in late breaking news from our producer, she informs us that Laura Dern and Ben Harper divorced in 2013.
All right. Celebrity marriages, what are you going to do?
Tell you what, that's right. That Ben Harper, he is such a floozy. I'll tell you what.
Laura Dern conversation will continue.
Our next question comes from Jan Devereaux. Jan, you're on with Mike Carney. What do you got?
Oh my gosh. Well, it wasn't really a question, more a comment, but I guess it does lead to a question. And just to say that one of the things that I enjoyed most during this year was the course that you taught in the Sunday morning, and the one on kind of UU music, history of music, was just excellent. And I'm wondering whether you would consider continuing to do something like that now and then.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. I'm really glad that you are that you feel that way, and absolutely, I'll be doing some more adult RE stuff when I can, if we're back to in person, and I'm doing choir rehearsal at a certain point, then but there's always a way to squeeze it into the margins. And so yeah, I love to teach, and I love the experience of being an educator, because you know there's no way to learn about something but to teach it, and you learn so much about it, and you learn from your students, and it's a great sort of collaborative art.
Well, you got a great response from the people who took it, and judging on that, I'm sure other people would be interested. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jan. Allison Bastion, you're up next. You're on with Mike Carney. What do you have for him tonight?
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hi, Allison.
Yesterday was fun singing with the choir. I loved it.
Thanks.
It
Thank
felt
you.
normal.
It did. It felt great to be able to stretch those muscles again.
Yeah. So I have two questions for you. My
All right.
question is, do you and Lucy have a song that you'd consider your song? From like even way back when you met, or something?
Sure. I think, yeah, the closest thing to that would be Here, There, and Everywhere by the Beatles. When we were at Baldwin Wallace, Lucy sang in a vocal jazz group called Table for Eight. And so we were dating at the time, and she sang that in a live concert, and you know, kept the eye contact with me the whole time, and that was it for me. You know, it was all over from there. That's right. So I guess that you know, and it's such a beautiful song to begin with. So
That's so cool.
So there you go.
All right. And then my other
Before Allison asks the
Wait.
next question, Mike, the next question Allison's going to ask you is a reflection of really how much we had our audience paying attention to our every word tonight. Allison, ask your question.
All right.
Okay. What is your favorite movie?
I rest my case.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you said The Godfather.
I was going to give her an answer like, it'll have to be a tie between the original Space Jam and the new one that just came out.
Okay.
I needed her to reiterate, we can't ask questions as panelists. That was my fault.
That's
Oh,
okay. That's
Okay,
okay.
so
I love
you
The
asked your
Godfather.
mother to ask that question,
Yeah.
Claudia?
I usually text her.
I did text.
And Allison, you didn't say to your daughter, hey, asked and answered?
No, because I
Objection.
was trying to word my first question while I was thinking about this.
Two halves of one brain.
Yeah.
Two halves, right?
I don't
one
know
brain.
about you, but I am so proud of the rest of my staff on the show and the quality of our audience. I just feel, you know, I'm just blown away by it. So yeah. So speaking of quality,
Well,
of the
thanks for
audience-
answering that twice.
Thanks, Allison. Speaking of the quality of our audience, our next question comes from this lady named Mary Ellen McNulty.
Hey,
Mary Ellen, you're on with Mike. What do you have for him
Mike,
tonight?
how you doing?
Hi, Mary Ellen.
Everything was lovely yesterday, by the way.
Thank you.
So I have a question. I know you're the music guy, so you know all this stuff, but there's so much of it. There's so much in the hymnal. There's so much music everywhere. How do you decide for a particular service what to do, what to bring in? Because you don't bring in just stuff from the hymnal, which thank
Right.
you, God. Thank you. Please, God, thank you.
Well, there's great stuff in the hymnal in both.
There
of them,
is. But thank you.
yeah.
You don't just do that. You bring stuff from other places, which is
Right.
wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thanks for saying that. I think it probably starts with what this guy David, I don't know if you've met him, but he asked me earlier about my eclectic taste in listening,
Yes.
and so it starts there. I would tell my or I always do tell my when I'm teaching classes in history, like
Mhm.
classical music history, rock music history, I always say you have to have big ears,
Mhm.
right? So you have to listen to all this stuff in order to, it's kind of like being well read, right? You have to be well listened as a musician. And so then if I'm listening to Ben Harper, or if I'm listening to Sarah Jaros, I'm listening to Stevie Wonder, then there's something that might spark an idea in my head about like, that would be perfect at church. And so sometimes I have stuff that I'm kind of holding off to the side, like waiting for the perfect moment to throw it in. But more often, it starts with a conversation with whoever is in charge of the service to say, okay, what's going on? The recent example was when Mark Weber led that 4th of July service, and he had these different kind of voices, these different readings,
Right.
that represented all these various facets of what is the United States. And so then I was trying to find music that would kind of hold that up in each place.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. Mike, we have time for one more question. That question comes from Lori Albright. Lori, you're on with Mike. Ask away.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Lori.
Always such a pleasure to hear your voice and listen to your words, and the times we get to hear you sing and play as well. But anyway, my question is, Good Company, you've been involved with them for how long has that relationship been, and how has it evolved over time?
I started with Good Company in 2016, and it has evolved quite a bit over the last year and a half, just like almost everything has. Good Company went virtual. A lot of choirs went dark over the pandemic, where they just kind of said, okay, we'll see you on the other side. Good Company, we did virtual concerts last November and May, and I hope we can do an actual in-person concert this November. Our first rehearsal is a week from tonight. I've been doing the same kind of surveying of them, and they're a 100% vaccinated group, I'm happy to say. So that is at least one piece of the puzzle that I feel pretty good about. My relationship with them has changed. I've been really trying to make Good Company more of a group that's present in the community, doing outreach with student groups, college and university and high school students, bringing in composers to work with those young musicians, and to help kind of light that fire as much as I can. And so in fact, we've got James Mulholland, who is not a household name outside of choral music, but he's a really well-known choir composer, and he's coming in this fall to we're going to perform some of his music, and he's going to do a workshop about the connection between poetry and vocal music.
Very cool.
Thanks, Mike. So, Mike, thanks for being with us tonight. By the way, those of you who are curious, today is Mick Jagger's 78th birthday. So we have no comments from the audience to read tonight for future shows. If any of you have any comments or questions to share, any remembrances about the show you want to share, any thoughts you have, whatever, please send them to us at Zoom-In, ZOOMIN, at uucleveland.org. Again, that's Zoom-In, ZOOMIN, at uucleveland.org. So, Mike, thanks for being our special guest tonight. Claudia, how about our next show?
Our next show will be on Monday, August 9th, with our new minister, Randy Partain, as our special guest. Please tell all of your UCC friends about this one. It promises to be must-see TV, especially within our congregation. David will be joined by our co-host, Will Barrett, and of course, we'll have the Jack Allman Comedy Moment. Join them on August 9th for our next episode of UUCC Zoom-In Live.
Thanks, Claudia. We're running out of show, gang, so let's give a major league round of applause to Liz Kantor, our producer, who just moved into our new house a week ago and still did the show tonight. As I still co-host tonight, do the easy stuff. Liz has to make sure that things actually happen. Thank you, Liz. And by the way, after the show with Randy Partain on August 9, the August 23 show will feature another Partain. Joy Partain will be our special guest on the 23rd. So please make sure you tell your friends at UUCC to come around for those. They're going to be must-see TV for us. And as a reminder, if you'd like to catch up with your fellow congregants after the show, just stay right here for a chance to chat with your fellow UUs. Liz will get you squared away following our wrap-up music. Speaking of which, we're going to leave you tonight with the song Why, the first solo song released by Annie Lennox in 1992, following the breakup of her group, the Eurythmics. As I mentioned earlier, this show is a Jack Allman selection. Anyway, we'll look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks for the next episode of UUCC Zoom-In Live. Mike and Claudia, say good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.